Hello everyone. Welcome to today's workshop on studying abroad during college. My name is Ms. Grindle, and I am a college advisor with the Kansas State College Advising Corps. A little bit about me. I graduated from Johnson County Community College in 2017 and then transferred to UMKC and graduated with both my BA and MA in 2020 and 2022. I am a first generation college student and a recipient of the federal Pell Grant. And then I studied abroad 3 different times during my college career. I studied abroad first in Germany, which that was where that photo was taken of me back in the summer of 2017. I then studied abroad in Portugal during a winter term for 3 weeks, which was a fantastic time. And then in spring 2020, I studied abroad in the Netherlands. Unfortunately, my experience in the Netherlands was cut short due to COVID-19. However, I still had a fantastic experience, and I can't wait to talk more about it. In today's presentation, we're going to go over a few different topics. First off, study abroad basics, and then we will briefly discuss the pros and cons of studying abroad. It's obviously not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some cons that come with exploring studying abroad. And of course, how you can best prepare as a high school student for studying abroad during college, because it's never too early to plan. So what is study abroad? Studying abroad is when you pursue your collegiate studies in a foreign country. Study abroad can be for a portion of your college experience, or you can complete your entire degree abroad as an international student. It's a lot more common to always study abroad for a short period of time. However, there are students from the United States who do complete their entire degree in a foreign country. There are different types of study abroad programs, as you may expect. University-led programs are one type, which are usually facilitated by each specific university. Third-party provider programs offer more options, and they are usually operated by different companies across the United States. Direct exchange programs are those which are facilitated between an American university and a foreign partner university. And of course, degree-seeking study abroad programs are where you fully enroll in a foreign institution to receive an academic degree. So the first three programs are short-term study abroad, while the degree-seeking program is for your entire college career. University-led programs. So college study abroad offices coordinate international programming for the students. These are often programs which are led by university faculty, and they can vary in length. So these programs are usually about 1 to 2 weeks long during academic breaks. So let's say you want to study abroad during your spring break or even your fall break. I, for instance, studied abroad during my winter break. So that is the time frame between basically the end of the fall semester to the beginning of the spring semester. However, most common are summer university-led programs, also called faculty-led programs, and these are about 2 to 6 weeks in length during the summer term. The benefits of university-led programs is that you are guaranteed academic credit and you know 100% how those courses will transfer back to your home institution. Why? Because the home institution is the one that is actually teaching the course. So faculty-led programs are very easy to fit in your academic degree program. You may also be able to apply university-given scholarships to your university-led program costs, because most likely you are paying the same tuition to go on a university-led program that you are for actually just studying abroad in the campus in the United States. There, of course, will be some additional program fees to cover things such as housing, flights, additional course materials. However, you know that part of that study abroad cost will be the tuition that you are already paying. Plus, one of my favorite things about participating in a university-led program is that I actually knew who I was traveling with about 6 months before we even studied abroad. That was a fantastic way to get to know my classmates, as well as to just feel more comfortable during the program, because I already knew who I was going to be rooming with, who I was going to be taking course lecture notes with. It was just a very helpful experience, especially if you have anxiety or just general feels about being abroad from home. So next up, we have third-party and provider programs. Once again, provider programs are basically outside companies that aren't necessarily affiliated with a specific university. And colleges will enter into partnerships with these third-party or provider programs to offer those students access to even more study abroad destinations. Just like faculty-led programs, there are various links to these. However, Third-party and provider programs are often longer in length just because of the amount of time you actually study abroad. For instance, some of third-party provider programs are about 2 to 8 weeks in length during the summer term. You can even study abroad sometimes for the entire summer. I actually had a student who did 3 straight summer programs back to back to back. So it is possible. However, the most common third-party provider program type is the semester-length program. That is when you spend 16 weeks abroad during the fall or spring semester. Benefits of going through a third-party provider is that the program costs are highly transparent. For instance, the program costs from these providers include tuition, housing, in-country support, healthcare, excursions, and even more. Sometimes they even include food if you stay with a homestay family. So if you want more transparency of how much a study abroad program may cost, I recommend looking into some third-party provider programs. Some examples of these include CIEE, ISA, as well as IFSA. So if you want to explore a couple of those options, I would recommend starting to look at those. Also, third-party provider programs provide students with increased access to more majors, i.e. STEM, medical programs, and also more foreign languages, which you may not even be able to study at your home institution. For instance, let's say you are interested in taking Arabic, but your college back in the United States doesn't offer Arabic classes. Maybe you study abroad in an Arabic-speaking nation, and therefore you can experience that foreign language and get some practice with it. And you will notice oftentimes that provider programs will focus specifically on STEM majors because STEM majors were, for the longest time, not as often to study abroad because the class requirements can be a little bit more difficult to replicate outside of the home institution. That is not the case anymore. A lot of study abroad programs do offer courses in things such as biology, chemistry, engineering, architecture, zoology, for instance. There's a lot of different options, even if you're in a more quote unquote difficult major. And of course, talking about money just a minute ago, increased access to scholarships. Third party provider programs can offer students their own specific scholarships, which you can only receive by participating in those programs. So, additional financial support is always a plus. So, next up, we have direct exchanges. I also participated in a direct exchange. That was actually my experience in the Netherlands. I studied abroad at the University of Utrecht as an international student. And that is basically when you just enroll as a full-time international student for a semester or an academic year. So you are totally just integrated into the institution and a community as a whole. Also, some benefits of these programs include that they are often the most affordable. And that's because you pay the tuition that you normally would pay to attend the institution back at home. So let's, for example, say you're studying abroad, you are currently a UMKC student. When you study abroad on a direct exchange program, you would pay the same UMKC tuition and fees that you're already paying to attend UMKC in Kansas City. There may be some additional costs, such as paying for housing, your flights, and etc. However, the base cost is what you are paying to attend UMKC as a local student. Because you are paying the tuition and fees in that manner, you may be able to use the institutional scholarships you already received to pay for direct exchanges. And of course, direct immersion into the university community abroad is one of the best benefits of direct exchanges. Because you are an international student at a foreign institution, you have access to all of the clubs that they have on campus. Oftentimes, if you live in a dormitory, you're going to be living with domestic students. It's a really great opportunity, especially if you are looking at studying abroad at a direct exchange institution and your target language. For instance, they offer direct exchanges in France, Spain, and a lot of different countries. So I highly recommend looking into direct exchanges if you can afford to study abroad for an entire semester. And I don't necessarily mean afford as in monetarily. I mean afford in terms of being able to take your same courses, being able to kind of take some electives without worrying about completing your major requirements at that moment. However, just as with everything, there are a couple cons. Unfortunately, direct exchange programs are often not available for summer offerings. This means you usually have to commit to at least a full academic semester. There was also sometimes a language requirement. I mentioned France and Spain as popular direct exchange locations. Oftentimes, universities in those countries will require you to have some history of learning French or Spanish. However, a lot of direct exchange options do allow you to take courses in English. And that's something I also want to specify. Studying abroad, you do not necessarily need to speak a foreign language. A lot of programs are conducted in English with an option to take some foreign language credit courses. And the last con it mentions students must be self starters. Direct exchanges are pretty challenging. For instance, when I studied abroad as a direct exchange student in Utrecht, I had to get my Netherlands visa. I had to apply for that visa. I had to apply for the college. I had to sign up for my own classes. It can be a lot and it can be very overwhelming. However, studying abroad is about embracing those challenges. And if you think you are up for it, a direct exchange could be a wonderful opportunity to truly experience and challenge yourself. And of course, last but not least, degree seeking. So if you are thinking about maybe you want to complete your entire degree abroad, that is a possibility. However, it is oftentimes more popular for students to do that for the graduate program, but it is definitely a possibility. You can often expect to spend at least 3 years in a foreign degree program. I know some countries offer 3 year bachelor's degrees, others can still take 4 to 5. It really just depends on country to country. And like I mentioned, master's and postdoc programs are available abroad and may be more feasible. In fact, there's often more funding for students to complete their master's and postdoc programs abroad due to the Fulbright fellowship. So if a full degree abroad does not seem suitable right now, maybe that's something you consider later down the road when there may be additional funding. And just like it mentions here, some countries do offer low or free tuition, but keep in mind that housing, transportation, and other living expenses are not included. For instance, I know Germany offers mostly free tuition at those state institutions. However, you would still have to pay for housing. Keep in mind that you don't necessarily get to seek a job while you're studying abroad as a full-time student, because that is a different visa and a whole other process. And like it mentions here, visas can be costly to receive and often require that you show access to funds for the duration of your stay because they want to make sure that you can completely self fund yourself without requiring a job. For instance, when I had to get my student visa for the Netherlands, I was always studying abroad for 6 months, and I had to show the Dutch government that I could sustainably take care of myself financially with basically showing them my bank account so they could see I had the funds and access to said funds. So yeah, those were the different program types. I could probably talk even longer about some of them, especially the third party provider programs, just because they are so numerous. I mean, think about a country and you could probably study abroad there, especially now. But however, we need to talk about the pros and cons of studying abroad. And of course, starting off with the positive pros of studying abroad, you definitely expand your horizon. Um, I am definitely not the same person I was before I studied abroad the first, second, or even third time. So you will change and you'll become more aware of who you are in the world and what your role is. If you want to practice a language, studying abroad is often the best way to do so because it gives you total immersion. For instance, when I was studying abroad in Germany, I was a student of German for about 6 years at that time. And it was probably the best opportunity I ever had to truly test my skills. And it was just a fantastic opportunity to do so. You also get to meet diverse people. I always love telling the story about when I was studying abroad in Utrecht. I had 3 roommates, and each of us were from different countries. One of us was, of course, from the United States. The other was from the Netherlands. One was from Italy, and one was from the Caribbean. So there's really a great opportunity to mingle not with just the culture of your host country, but with cultures from other students who are studying there just like yourself. And of course, challenging yourself. College isn't necessarily just about academically challenging yourself, it's about challenging yourself in other facets of life. So, like, oftentimes, college is the first time students live by themselves, they cook for themselves. There's a lot of adapting when it comes to becoming a college student. And studying abroad is just a culmination of all of that. And it truly is one of the best ways to challenge yourself and prepare yourself for life after college. But of course, cons, they do exist. Obviously, study abroad, a lot of students do get sticker price when they look at the cost of study abroad programs. However, I would let you know that studying abroad does not necessarily need to be as expensive as those programs make it out to be. For instance, if you look at the cost of studying abroad in the United Kingdom, you may be shocked by that sticker price. That's because the UK has a similar tuition and fee structure as we do in the United States. Not every country is like that. For instance, when I studied abroad in Portugal, a very affordable country to study abroad. Netherlands, not so much. It's kind of like the UK when in terms of expense being expensive. But of course, a lot of students choose less travel destinations such as Thailand, South Korea. Also, China is also a very popular study abroad destination. Latin America is very popular. We had a lot of programs go to Costa Rica, which is a very awesome place to study abroad. So you may look at those Western European countries and be like, wow, this is never going to be feasible. I challenge you to look at different options which you may not have considered beforehand. Culture shock, that is definitely an aspect of studying abroad that you don't necessarily get used to. I remember when I arrived in the Netherlands, I was like, oh, I got this culture shock thing all squared away. No, I did not. I was still culture shocked by the smallest of things that I thought I truly had already grasped. And culture shock does not have to be a negative though, as long as you actually just acknowledge it and go like, okay, I'm experiencing this, but it's not the end of the world. It's just because I'm experiencing a different way of life. Course availability, I briefly touched upon this. Some study abroad programs can be more difficult to get specific courses that you're looking for. However, being flexible, like I mentioned with locations, can be very helpful in finding a program which offers you the courses you need. And last but not least, language differences. A lot of programs do cater mostly to English speaking individuals. For instance, your classes will most likely be taught in English. However, that doesn't mean there will be no language difference or difficulties navigating the outside campus. You may run into a situation where if you don't speak the host country's language, you might struggle to get by. And fortunately for us by now, we have access to technology, which makes this a little bit easier to navigate with Google Translate. Um, but do be aware that is something that you may still experience, even if you're on an English speaking program. And of course, I always like to discuss study abroad scholarships because, like I mentioned, the price can often be like a no go from the second it gets brought up with studying abroad. However, there are scholarships out there to make study abroad a more affordable option for many students. And the first one is the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship. I actually received a Gilman Scholarship to study abroad in Berlin, Germany back in summer of 2017. It is a scholarship which is specifically for students who receive a federal Pell Grant. That makes it basically to where it's competitive, but it's not as competitive because you're already applying within a cohort, which is only for specific students. The Gilman Scholarship at this time is worth up to $5,000, but you can actually receive additional money if you study a critically needed language as per the US Department of State. And with that information, you could probably assume, yes, this is a government-sponsored scholarship. This Gilman Scholarship is actually funded by the US State Department. Program length, there was no minimum. You could study abroad for 2 weeks and become a Gilman Scholar. That is not something that is brought up in the requirements to receive a Gilman Scholarship, and that is because they want those students to be able to study abroad, even if they have to choose one of the more affordable programs, or maybe they are in a course of study which doesn't give them a lot of time to study abroad, which does happen. So they want to make sure that program length is not a barrier to entry. And the alumni benefits. I'm actually part of the alumni group for Gilman Scholars. And it's really cool because you get to be connected to a lot of individuals which you may have never met before. Also, I believe there's like a government service afterwards where you actually get some, if you want to work for the government, you get a bonus in hiring. It's pretty neat. So if you are a federal Pell Grant recipient, I highly recommend checking out the Gilman Scholarship because you may be able to win it and win some additional funding for your program. And of course, the Critical Language Scholarship. This is a little bit more competitive, but because it is not limited only to students who receive a federal Pell Grant. It is a fully funded program, though, which is pretty awesome. The Critical Language Scholarship allows students to study 14 different languages in different countries throughout the summer. It is an 8 to 10 week program. So it's not too long and it is slotted in the summer months to be the most accessible option for students. And in those 8 to 10 weeks, you will cover up to 1 year of academic coursework for a specific foreign language. And for most of the foreign languages from the Critical Language Scholarship, you do not have to have any previous experience with studying that language. So if it's a language that you have some interest in, but you don't have the ability to study it back at home, I would check out the Critical Language Scholarship because not only is it a fully funded program where they cover basically all of the costs associated with it, it's an opportunity to further explore a language which may be more difficult to do so by yourself. And then, of course, what you can do now to prepare for study abroad, even though you're only a high school student. So, what you can do to prepare now is first reach out to the study abroad or international departments at the colleges you are interested in to learn more about the programs and requirements. Perhaps you have already committed to a certain school. Great. You can just go ahead and reach out to the study abroad office and let them know, hey, I'm an incoming freshman and I would like to know more about studying abroad through your institution. That is a great way to get the ball rolling because you show the initiative and you also allow yourself more time to explore different programs. And I will tell you this, the earlier you study abroad, the more flexibility you will have when it comes to choosing a program. You can also start researching potential locations you may be interested and comfortable studying in. Maybe you know Western Europe is exactly where you want to go because you want to travel Europe through the summer. Maybe you know you want to explore Southeast Asia. There's a lot of great countries out there for you to explore, but starting to narrow that down will make it easier when it comes to actually choosing a program and comparing the programs, of course. I also recommend to study foreign languages. A little goes a long way. Even if it's just saying hello, knowing how to order food in your specific language, the country you're studying in, that is very much appreciated. Trust me, that was always my experience. Even if it was just me speaking German or a little bit of the Portuguese I knew when ordering food, that really just allowed for communication to be easier and the individual I was speaking with at the time was very appreciative of me putting in the effort to do that. You can also start saving back some money for your program and research scholarships. The Gilman and Critical Language scholarships, for what I know, are not going anywhere. A lot of national study abroad scholarships are not going anywhere. Even if you know you're not going to be studying abroad for another 2 to 3 years, just start looking at scholarships. Look at what the requirements are, the GPA requirements, how you actually apply. All of that will help you so much in the future when it comes to actually applying for those scholarships. And of course, perhaps the most important thing, talk with your parents and guardians and your academic advisor about your desire to study abroad. If you're an incoming freshman and you know you even want to potentially think about studying abroad, let your academic advisor know at your college. That is because they can work with you to see when would be the best time frame for you to study abroad and what your classes should look like in the semesters before and afterwards so to make sure you still graduate on time. Because yes, it is 100% possible to graduate on time with studying abroad. However, it does require a little bit of planning just with your academic advisor so you know what classes you're going to need to take before and afterward. And here's just some links to study abroad offices across the KC Scholars Network. I will also have this link down below in the bio of this video. And of course, I will email it to any participants who joined me tonight. But yeah, that is it. And thank you so much for listening.